because the
Yeah. Garrett Rhodes.
You can introduce.
South side of Bishop, whichever. I just told them I need confirmation for the guy that's named. I'll be pissed.
When we stand up, you just call him.
So I told him I would.
Nobody knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, and Jeff Archer has grandchildren their age, just very familiar with.
Hello.
It's working.
I don't think that the EPA really wants us to.
Thank you.
I think they're concerned about that.
But we,
I have to make sure I can hear you.
Areas where people are coming and coming in and going out.
How many parks would we have to have residents in 10-minute walk to a park?
Good morning. Good evening, everyone. This is now the Farragut Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for October 26th. We will start by rising for a moment of, for a prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Garrett Rhodes will offer the prayer for us tonight.
Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we're very grateful to be gathered here, that we can discuss matters of this community of importance to all of us who dwell here. We pray, Father, that Thy Spirit may dwell here and that we can have sharp minds to know the needs of our neighbors and friends, and that we can, that our public servants can know that they are supported and that they can do what's best for this community. Pray, Father, that Thy would guide us in all that we do, that we can be as You need us to be on this earth, to serve well and to uplift those around us. And we pray these things humbly in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is approval of the agenda.
Are there any changes? No, ma'am. Move to approve.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item is the mayor's report. I don't have anything outstanding to report tonight. Anybody else have anything you want to say?
I wasn't here last time, so I wanted to give my small commentary on losing Gary Palmer to Roswell. I know it's a good move for him. I will miss him greatly. I could always go to him to get an honest and pragmatic assessment of the issues that I was contending with, and I really trusted his insight and his input, and I will sorely miss him, but I know that he's on to bigger and brighter things, and I appreciate his service to our town. Thank you.
We all share those sentiments, and thank you for saying that. Anybody else want to say anything? If not, then we go to Citizens Forum. Do we have anybody signed up?
No one has signed up.
Next item then is approval of minutes from October 12th.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
All right. Next item is ordinances. The first one is ordinance 17-14, ordinance amending the general fund budget of the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget, passed by ordinance 17-909, tourism program.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading of the ordinance. We brought this to the board a few weeks ago, and we wanted to take it back. The board asked us to take this item back to the Economic Development Advisory Committee to get some more feedback from them on the position itself, and also any kind of performance metrics that we could utilize in order to determine how this position should be evaluated. The committee discussed it, thought the the actual job description was very complete, and also thought that the marketing plan that had been provided to the board and is included in your packet today included a lot of different areas that you could evaluate a position on. And they felt like over the next year plus for a part-time position, it's going to take them quite a bit of time to get through these. And I think what we determined from that meeting is that once we get the person in place, we can start developing all those metrics during this next year to really fully determine what the best ideas and metrics are to evaluate how well the program is doing, how our marketing plan is being assessed, and just how valuable those tax dollars are coming back into our community. So with that, we do have the budget amendment back on your agenda for approval. It is for a total budget adjustment for this fiscal year of $120,000, and we would recommend approval.
I'll move for approval of ordinance 17-14.
And this is second reading.
Correct.
All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? I think we should ask if there's any opposed.
All opposed?
I am vigorously opposed to this because there are no quantifiable objectives. We're adding payroll. We've had no further discussion on this. There are no measurable objectives in terms of increased revenue for the town. And I think to hire somebody on with a bunch of activities but no measurable objective is a mistake. And so I vigorously oppose it. My vote would be no.
Well, the ayes have it. Second ordinance tonight is ordinance 17-16, ordinance amending the general fund budget of the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget passed by ordinance 17-09, human resources professional services.
I'll move to approve ordinance 17-16 upon second reading.
I'll second.
This agenda item also is to include money for a ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. We had originally $60,000 in the budget. We're requesting an additional $90,000 in order to complete a contract, which is your next agenda item that you have on the agenda with a contractor to go do this work for us.
I just want to make a comment. I wanted to address Mr. Hill's concerns that he expressed in the workshop. I understand that I'm not happy about any of this, that we have to spend this kind of money to do a self-evaluation when we have been working very hard on our own to make sure that we are ADA compliant. It's very frustrating. And there may be that we have to open this back up again eventually, but we've got to start somewhere. And I would rather us start on this side of it than to blow it up to something that it may not necessarily require us to do when we can go back and address it later. If we're required to by the state to address it later, that would be the time that we have to kind of look at it again. So I understand what his concerns are. I'm not happy about this, but I understand that this is a requirement that we're going to have to meet.
I ditto that.
Yep.
So we move on to business items.
Go to vote.
Vote.
Vote. Did we have a?
We have
A motion and a second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes. Next item then is business items. First one is approval of contract for ADA self-evaluation and transition plan.
Good evening. This is the second arm to what we're talking about. As we discussed in our workshop and in our previous meeting, before you, there is a contract for Kimley Horn for an ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. And one thing I do want to point out is this is something that is required. We must make some progress along these lines in order to keep the grant funding that we currently have, and it's $7.8 million. And so it's very important to move forward. So, but with that being said, on the other hand, the town has historically adopted ordinances and codes in compliance with ADA legislation and followed TDOT requirements in road building. Additionally, when approving developers' building plans, the ADA guidelines and best practices were considered. The town programs and hiring practice have long included accommodations for the disabled. On the other hand, over time, requirements and best practices improve the original guidelines. So to complete the self-evaluation of all town-owned property and infrastructure, town programs, practices, and to develop a transition plan that lists the necessary changes that we need to do in order to be compliant with the federal law requires detailed knowledge and professional judgment that town staff does not have. It became readily apparent to us that we could not do this and a consultant must be hired. We did publish the RFQ, went through the evaluation, and Kimley Horn was a unanimous choice by the committee. And so, let's see, we do have, in order to meet TDOT's requirements of the self-evaluation transition plan, we do need to show substantial progress during this calendar year and report that to TDOT September of 18. Prior to that, we will have to do a letter from the town to TDOT showing the substantial progress of 17. So I recommend that the board approve the Kimley Horn Associates as a consultant to complete and deliver an ADA self-evaluation and transition plan.
When we were in the workshop, we talked about how paved greenways don't have to meet, there's two types of paved greenways.
Right.
One of them does not have to meet ADA requirements. Is that what I heard?
That is my understanding also. If it does not go to any structure, if the greenway is part of a route through a park and there are picnic shelters there, there's a restroom there, yes, that would be included.
Okay.
But if it's going through over hill and dale, no.
Like the Grigsby Chapel Trail. Mm-hmm. So we have up to 19 linear miles of paved greenways are included in this project, but they aren't required to be ADA compliant, so why do we have them in here? Am I missing something?
I think we could have Sue maybe help us out a little bit with this, but I think bottom line is you're looking at programmable areas, and so if you're going from a programmed area to another programmed area, you need to evaluate it.
Okay.
If it's just a general trail from say a subdivision to another subdivision, those usually aren't an issue that we would have to go and measure, monitor, things like that. Measure the grade. Really, that's what you're looking at, is the grade of how steep they are, things like that.
And my understanding is when you build a sidewalk, if it follows the side of the road, those don't have to be ADA compliant as well. Is that my understanding is right?
There are more tolerances.
Sue, can you come to the mic for us? Thanks.
As far as grade is concerned.
Yeah,
Grade is concerned. Okay.
Daryl can answer that better.
Okay.
I can?
Yeah, you can.
As far as grade is concerned, where you have handicap ramps, things like that, and I think, the discussion about greenways that go across, maybe over to a restroom or connect subdivisions, if they're otherwise ADA compliant, but they don't tie into other facilities in a manner that is compliant with ADA, like a handicap ramp, then we really need to be improving those tie-ins. If
Okay.
the rest of it is ADA compliant, I think it should be ADA compliant from one end to the other.
Okay.
And I think also on top of that, we in this contract, we are going to be looking at all of the intersections as sidewalks meet roadways throughout town. Those are the main areas that we have to look at for ADA compliance is those slopes as they're meeting those. But many of the sidewalks throughout town would just be following along the road, as Daryl mentioned a second ago. So I think, again, many of our sidewalks are probably already compliant or are not an issue. It's more of the intersections. You want to make sure those are safe for folks as they're coming into and having to cross traffic.
And our trailheads have to be compliant, but the trail may not have to be compliant. So there's a lot of, and this may be required in the near future. Right now, it's not.
And this is the main reason why we are hiring a professional firm to come in and evaluate all these things, because they can be able to tell us whether or not some of these areas do need to be covered or some do not. If there's an area that does not need to be covered, then we can take it out of the contract and not have them do it.
Okay.
They'll also be evaluating all of the connections like that and giving us a priority list. I mean, prioritization is the main thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to ignore something that is a big deal while we're going after something that's to repair something that's not that big a deal.
Understood. That's all I had.
I'm going to move for approval of the contract to hire Kimberly Horn and Associates as a consultant to complete and deliver an ADA self-evaluation and transition plan in the amount of $148,700.
Second.
Any more discussion?
I have none.
None.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Item is approval of proposal for engineering services from Urban Engineering for preliminary plans for Smith Road Greenway sidewalks.
Yes, this item is a proposal from Urban Engineering to create two preliminary designs for alternatives for pedestrian connections along Smith Road between Everett Road and Andover Boulevard. The reason we're looking at two alternatives here, several years ago, staff realized that, and I'm sorry, Alice, could you go to the overhead? It's still a little hard to see. Several years ago, staff realized that it would be a very good pedestrian connection between Everett Road and the existing sidewalk on Smith Road to extend a greenway adjacent to Smith Road, but along a 100-foot wide swath of open space that is between Andover Subdivision and Smith Road. On the eastern end of that, the ground lays perfectly to construct a greenway. There are challenges as you move farther west, but a couple of the biggest pros. First off, it would move the pedestrians away from Smith Road, and at the same time, it would protect a stand of trees that kind of serves as a buffer between Smith Road and Andover Subdivision. Staff presented that to the Andover Homeowners Association a few years ago, and there were some very mixed feelings about that. So at that time, we decided to hold off on it. Now, with the completion of Everett Road, which includes pedestrian facilities on both sides of the roadway, now if we were to extend these pedestrian facilities, it actually goes to something. Prior to that, it would just butt into Everett Road and stop. Now there's some place to walk to. So we felt it would be a good idea to approach the Homeowners Association again with the idea of a greenway through that open space. Staff held a meeting with the Homeowners Association a few weeks ago, and there were still several outspoken residents who back up to that open space who were opposed to the idea of a greenway. And the result of the meeting was that we wanted to look at an alternative, well, two alternatives. One would be possibility of a greenway through the open space. The other would be sidewalk with curb and gutter, which would be very much like the sidewalk that is on the eastern side of Andover Boulevard along Smith Road. So we've requested a proposal from Urban Engineering. That's the item that we're discussing. That's before you tonight. Urban Engineering has presented this with a fee of $30,900, and staff recommends approval.
I'm going to move for approval of proposal for Urban Engineering Incorporated for preliminary design of pedestrian facilities at Smith Road.
Second.
I was at that meeting as well, and there were people that are very interested, but there were also some testy people. Their concern was there is, if you look on, not the section that's, oh heck, this, go back to, yeah, that picture, where the road curves, Southwick Circle curves, there's a drainage area right there, and the houses that back up to that have some drainage issues. And they are concerned that they will continue, that putting a trail, because the initial thought was to put a trail between the drainage and their houses, that it would compound their drainage issues. So in the conversation that we had with them, they really wanted to see two different plans. Well, they wanted to see three, but they wanted to see a sidewalk on the south side, and for pedestrian issues, I don't believe that that's a really good idea. There's too much going on the south side. The north side pedestrians would be far more protected and much safer. I can expand on that if you'd like, but they wanted to see two different, the sidewalk and the trail, and have some understanding of the drainage issues. If we would think that would be discovered during the initial drawings and phases of what we're planning on doing with urban engineering. So that's what we've proposed, that we do some preliminary drawings, figure out what it looks like, so that they have an educated choice to make.
Are you wanting to speak?
No, I'm just here to answer questions
okay.
if there are any.
This is Chris Sharp with Urban Engineering, if you have any questions with them.
I do have a question. Like what I just said, if there's some drainage issues in that, the drainage area there, will that come to light when you're doing your survey?
If it's something that's readily obvious from the ground surface, then yes, it would. There's what appears to be a wetland area that I think it's spring fed. That's part of our budget, is to have the wetland delineated and then kind of see what we can do around.
Okay.
We're not going to alter the wetland. See what we can do to route the greenway around it, and
Okay.
Hopefully maybe even make it an amenity. It could be a nice little. There is 100 feet to work with, so it could be a kind of in my opinion, it could be a better alternative than having it right up against the road.
Well, that's my first thought was, and that's what I tried to explain to them. I think it will be a much more attractive pedestrian facility as leaving the trees there and putting in a walkway for them. And they certainly have, because it is their area, they have a say in how that's designed and what it looks like, but you can put some plantings around it. You could put some benches along the way. It could be a really attractive pedestrian facility for them, and I think that it would be my first choice. But I certainly do not want to create any kind of more compound the issues that they're seeing back there. So.
And that's part of our preliminary efforts, is to identify areas of concern and address those up front.
Yeah.
Alderman Pavlin, what exactly are these folks concerned here? The water.
Well,
what are the issues?
The drainage is right here, and apparently what happens is when it rains, the water comes in through here. Apparently flows between two of the pieces of property and straight through, and they have standing water a lot of the time. I haven't seen it. It's supposed to rain on Saturday, and it's supposed to be a lovely, nice rainfall. So I might take a walk over there.
Go watch it.
Yeah, and see what it is they're talking about.
There's a retention pond right down here in this corner, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. It kind of extends from over here and down. And to me, this is the part this is an easy one. I think that seeing a trail here, this is the tricky part. And if we can work with them, it may be that we can put a trail here and have to put a sidewalk here. I think we just need to be open and flexible to what we think we can accomplish in that area.
Well, and Mr. Sharp, you're sensitive to that, to their concerns and how we might actually, by putting our trail through there, improve their issue and look at the big picture and how we can make things better for everybody.
At least identify what the issue is, hopefully. I mean, you don't really know how to fix it unless you know what the
it
problem is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any more questions.
None.
I have none.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? Next item is approval of proposals for right-of-way acquisition service for Watt Road intersection at Kingston Pike.
Yes, this item is the approval of three separate proposals for acquisition services for our project, excuse me, at Watt Road and Kingston Pike intersection. I generally try to put these three types of proposals together when we have when we're doing this, because it's a lot easier to explain. You'll recall this is a project where we're reassigning lanes at Watt Road at Kingston Pike. It includes tightening the radius returns on the north side of Kingston Pike at Watt Road and extending sidewalk along the western side of Watt Road up to the rural metro. That'll provide a great pedestrian connection from South Watt Road and Old Stage all the way up to Mayor Bob Leonard Park. This project will include, there are 5 tracts that will be impacted by this project. In order to purchase right-of-way and easements, excuse me, in order to purchase the right-of-way and easements for the project, TDOT requires that the appraisals are made by one appraiser, reviews are made by a second independent appraiser, and the acquisition, the actual negotiation is done by a third entity. So I bring all three of these proposals to you as one agenda item. The first item is for appraisals. Butler Appraisal Group LLC has a fee of $10,600. Appraisal review by Dun & Metz Appraisal Group with a fee of $5,800. And negotiation, I call it acquisition, by Crook & Company with a fee of $22,500. We've worked with these people many times in the past. We've always been pleased with their service, so staff recommends award of these contracts to those three entities.
I move for approval of proposal from Butler Appraisal Group LLC for $10,600, proposal from Dun & Metz Appraisal Group for $5,800, and proposal from Crook & Company for $22,500.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Do you have does it show in here a time frame when this will be? Be nice to get this finished.
I think right now we're going through a process, TDOT is going through the process because they are working with utilities. Now that's mandated how much time utilities have to respond as well as to get their proposals together. We're looking at the earliest letting date would be about April.
The earliest what?
Earliest time that TDOT will be managing construction of this project. That was
Use there, I didn't hear
Letting,
it.
that means
Oh,
they-
letting.
when they open the bids.
Not
Most likely, it's going to be sometime next summer when we actually see construction. That's with an April letting date. We might see something going on about June. So, yeah, it's still
A long time away.
several months away, but it's one of those
Nothing moves
things when,
Can we just yell at them?
well, TDOT is paying half the construction costs, so when we're using
I'm
other
just
people's
kidding.
money, we follow their calendar.
I see, I know.
I have no further questions.
None.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is approval of proposal for Wait a minute. Approval.
D.
Okay, I was I was right first time. Approval of proposal for engineering services from Canon and Canon Inc. for Advanced Traffic Management System Phase 1 project.
Yes, this item is a proposal from Canon and Canon Incorporated for design of an updated traffic control system for virtually all 26 of our signals in town. It includes a lot of hardware upgrades. That includes a central traffic signal control software, controller replacement, signal system communication, handicap ramps, pedestrian signals as needed, radar at each of our intersections, updated left turn signal heads, and mast arms and poles. So total cost of this project is $2,925,000, which includes engineering and construction. Now, this is funded through CMAQ, which is 100% reimbursable with no local match. The item in front of you is a proposal from Canon and Canon for the engineering services for the NEPA design and implementation with a total fee of $417,480. I will say that Brian Haas with Canon and Canon is with us tonight if you have any questions of him.
I move for approval of proposal from Canon and Canon Incorporated with total fee of $417,480.
Second.
Any more?
I have a question. This is phase 1 of how many phases?
Unsure at this moment. It depends on how much we can accomplish in phase 1. And there might be some advanced features we can come back and add later in a phase 2. We named it phase 1, but that doesn't necessarily mean there will have to be a phase 2.
It says here, central traffic control software. Does that mean there's a place that we will centrally locate to look over traffic? What does that mean?
Yes, there will be a software that will be housed probably in this building. We'll work with engineering staff during the project to determine what the needs are, but it'll allow the town and its signal maintenance contractor to take a more proactive approach, because it'll provide alarms when signals fell or doing something that you don't intend. It'll also allow you to tweak the timing from the workstation as opposed to having to go out in the field and open the cabinet.
And it says intersection detection devices radar. I assume that's showing where if there's a car present, that kind of stuff?
We mostly use cut loops in the asphalt. Now they're very reliable, except that over time they tend to wear out.
Yeah.
Traffic pushes them and they can break. So there's quite a bit of maintenance. We're replacing a lot of those loops.
How often are we replacing those? At Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road, what's one of our heavily trafficked ones?
We might be replacing every year or so. It really just depends on how long they've been down and whether we have to. Biggest item is when we resurface at an intersection. They all have to come up and be replaced at that point.
Okay.
Some of them can be very expensive. We replaced one at Parkside Drive in Campbell Station a couple of years ago that needed to come out, and it wound up costing, $8,000 or $10,000. And in doing it, we managed to disturb the one next to it.
Oh, geez. You had to replace that one too?
That's correct.
Oh, lovely.
Radar is usually a lot more reliable and will last longer.
So at that point, will we just leave them in place, or will we go back and take them out, or as we
We would just leave
repave
them in place.
You pave over them whenever you pave?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. Help me understand something. There's a line here that says total cost of the project is $2,925,000, including engineering and construction. Then we're saying Canon and Canon Inc. for their proposals for all engineering services totaling $417,480. Is that reimbursable?
Yes.
It's all reimbursable?
Yes.
So whatever we're paying here we're going to get back? Okay. Just want to make sure.
We're doing it on the front end, it comes back on the back end.
Right.
Thanks.
Okay.
How it's after all of this is done then, or is it after the entire project is done?
We can request reimbursement monthly
Okay,
as it's being done.
okay.
We typically are every couple of 3 months, maybe quarterly even, but we try not to let it get too far ahead.
I have no further questions.
How long will it take to finish?
It won't be a short process. As Mr. Smith said, it's federally funded, which is good news because no local match, but that also means there are a lot of boxes to check along the way, and a lot of boxes that you can't check until you've checked other boxes. Right now, we estimate about 3 years.
3 years.
Wow.
I'd point out too that, we still have a CMAQ project that's going on for retiming of our signals. That how deep are we into that one? About 2 years, and I mean all of the signals have been retimed, but now you have to go in and perform a study to show the difference show the improvement to justify it.
Okay.
One last question. We're going to radar. And what's the alternative to that besides ground loops? There's another one that's like a.
There's video, and our experience has not been particularly great.
They're not very fog friendly, are they?
They're not fog friendly, and I will say there's one location up near the interstate that twice a year, depending on where the sun is, we have issues that come up where
I know exactly
it
where
goes
it is.
blind. That's the one.
That irritates a lot of people.
We have to make a lot of adjustments for it, and it usually takes about a week or two as the sun moves north, and then when it comes back south.
And this will take care of that.
This will take care of that.
All right. You got my vote.
I have no more questions.
I have none.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next one is approval of contract for McPhee Park Phase 3 Design Services Contract.
In August, the board approved a new McPhee Park master plan and the next phase, which was Exhibit F. Then this next phase would include mass grading of the site, road connection from the current road to a new entrance on McPhee, site utility systems for the entire project, including stub outs for future work, stormwater system for projects, including stub out for work in future phases, East Pavilion and restroom, East Pavilion parking lot and associated lighting, Great Lawn, walking trail loop with associated lighting. The initial cost estimate for this phase is $6.1 million. This contract for architectural and engineering services is for 7.25% of the estimated construction budget, which is $442,250, plus up to $10,000 in reimbursable expenses. This contract has 5 stages. At each stage, our consultants will come back to you to give you a report. The first stage is a schematic design phase. There will be a cost estimate, an updated cost estimate for the construction at that point. The next phase is the design development phase, and again, an updated cost estimate at that point. The next phase would be the construction documents, then the bidding phase, and then the construction phase. Our proposed timing on this is to start with some work on the property, grubbing and getting ready for a topo survey that we will need to have before the consultants can really dig in very much. And we would do that pretty close to right away as soon as we can get those prices and everything worked out. We would like to have all the construction drawings done by late next fall, and with the idea of bidding this in December or early January, and moving forward with construction in early 2019 so that we'd have an entire construction season to finish this phase. There's a lot of earth to move in this phase. So, any questions?
I'll move for approval of McPhee Park Phase 3 Design Services Contract with Ross Fowler PC at a cost of 7.25% of the construction bids plus up to $10,000 in reimbursable expenses.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I have some discussion. I don't support this at this time. I will admit, when we looked at this, I think it was in May when it was unveiled, and the costs were shown as double what I thought we were going to have, my heart sunk. $12 million is a lot of money. And this is my concern. We have the center of our town, to people who don't live here, it looks like it's dying. It's in decline. And we have not, in my mind, since I've been on the board, we've not put any energy from a board perspective to investigate what we want to see from that. We've not engaged the community. We've not done what we did to develop this master plan for the park. We took some time to get community input. We spent some time on it from a community point of view, from a board point of view. We've not done any of that for our town center. We've all indicated that we'd like to see a town center, but we've not done anything for it. I am not making an educated decision here. This is a lot of money to allocate to a park when we don't even have any idea of, we've talked about a public-private partnership. What does that look like? How much is that? What do we see ourselves doing? We don't have traditional tax ability, property tax abatement issues that we can put forth. So it's probably going to be an expenditure of some of our funds. Where is that expenditure? How much is that? I can't make an educated decision on that until I feel like we have some kind of vision for a town center. And I feel like the heart of our town is on fire, and we're sending fire trucks out to McPhee Park. Personally, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with this until we've put some energy behind a town center, because I think we are on the verge of, to me, it seems like we're on the verge of looking like, or seriously injuring our town. So that's kind of where I am. I'm not saying I think that this is a valuable thing. I'm just not making an educated decision at this point.
I agree with Alderman Pavlin that this is a huge expenditure. I think it's a lot more than any of us anticipated. And we have, aside from the issues that Alderman Pavlin so eloquently expressed concerning our town center, we have the Campbell Station Inn. We have a lot of infrastructure issues concerning streets that need improved, and we have so far unquantified infrastructure issues in the form of aging, storm drainage, and so forth. And so I agree that this is probably not the time to be putting forth this kind of expenditure, and I would certainly be for certainly not terminating this project, but just putting it back. It's moving it to another station in our priorities.
I'd like to comment. We've been looking at this park project for over 6 years. We've owned this land for longer than that. Our citizens have no access to this property. We have budgeted over $6 million over the next few years for the park. All we're doing is moving it up slightly to at least get this first phase 3 done, so that our citizens do have access to this property, and hopefully, at the end of this, we'll at least have the great lawn, which can be used as a functional place for concerts or whatever type of events that the town might want to have out there. As far as the mixed-use town center, I think we're all for it. Everybody here on this board, I believe, is anxious to see that happen. But that is going to happen through, I think, private funding. We need someone that's willing to come in and spend the money to develop that property. That might take 10, 15, 20 years. We've got this property we've been looking at for 6 or 7 years to do something with, and here's our chance. A lot of our citizens are saying they want it. It will be a community park. It's a little bit of something for everybody in it. And I think a lot of people in this community are going to have and be able to take advantage of it and get something worthwhile out of it. And I'm all in favor of the mixed-use town center and trying to get that moving along. But as we know, we've had our town staff meeting with people within the town, within the state, outside of the state, trying to bring someone here that would help develop that property. Land acquisitions and all that is going to take time. And here we've got something that we can move on and act on immediately that I believe a lot of our citizens, maybe the majority of our citizens, will be able to take advantage of. So I'm all in favor for moving forward.
Okay, I guess it's up to me to talk about it next. Whenever we did the survey of the citizens in the town center was high on the list. So was the park. And those two things seem to be what people wanted. And we're sitting here trying to do what the people want, not necessarily what the five of us want. But I think both of them hold merit. The park project, this part of it anyway, is something to start with. Trying to get to follow what Murfreesboro and some of the other cities have done, where they had private enterprise involved as bill sponsors. It's a doable deal. There's a fellow that spearheaded that project in Murfreesboro that's retired now, lives up in Gatlinburg, and he certainly could be tapped to help us on that project as far as getting private enterprise involved to do this. Alderman Pavlin is correct. We have not invested in the town center per se like what we have in the parks. The town center is something that will have to also probably be a co-op system. I don't think we can do it, or we can't really expect a developer to do it all on his own. It may be that we have to be involved with it as well. We need to be prepared for that. And how quick that'll happen may have to do a lot with how quickly some of the property will be available. And that looks like that may be a year or two off. But I think now is the time to go ahead and get people in the town engaged in this conversation as far as the town center, because, again, that was one of the things that they wanted to see. They wanted to see the better parks like McPhee Park, which we have here on the board right now. They also wanted to see something going with the town center. And again, to Ms. Pavlin's talk on the properties that are blighted, that's something that I guess we need to grow teeth in order to do something about it. I mean, there's a lot of it that's just set. It's in disrepair. The Ingalls property is a good example. It's fallen apart over there. Very shortly it'll be vacated, and hopefully there'll be something to be done about that. The property up here on the corner, I think we're on a path as far as getting that fixed. One of them anyway. Looks like we need to juggle both. I think both of them can be done with a little bit of smart planning.
I realize we've already allocated funds for this, and the engineering needs to proceed. So I'm not going to vote against it at this point, but I do want to second what Alderman Pavlin said, and just caution the board that we need to be careful as we proceed with this and not accelerate it. We've got it broken into phases, and that we move cautiously and weigh into balance the other initiatives that that are staring us in the face. And that's all I've got to say tonight on that.
Well, it sounds to me like we need to have some discussion about how do we energize something like a town center? How do we do it? We obviously can't do it as this board because we don't have that kind of money. And so private has got to come in and do it. And do we have any plan for that?
Yes, but, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I understand that we can't do the development, but we can come in, we're on a, what is it? We're doing something with, and I should send this to you. We're going to have to express, and we're going to have to be, as a board, very forward-thinking on this and showing interest. We need to get with the property owner, see if there's interest. I'm not just talking about the Ford property, I'm talking about the Biddle property. June 2019, that Kroger is available. We should have a plan in place by then. We need to engage the citizens. We've done that strategic planning. We've got so much good feedback. People are energized. Let's take that energy and start getting some input from our community. What do they want to see? Let's get them on board. We need to do a market analysis, retail, office, and residential. What can this area support? Target developers that have done this type of development in suburbia and go out to them and say, hey, we're ready to be a partner. We're still fighting. Town of Farragut is still out there fighting this idea that it's hard to do business here. It's going to take all of us putting that energy forth to say, hey, we want to work with you. We are looking to, maybe it's infrastructure that we put in. Is it a bridge or is it a parking garage? I'm not sure, but we need to be open to that, and we need to be, we have to kind of have a face to it, because no one's just going to show up and say, hey, I want to build in Farragut. That's a very complicated project, although I hear that you guys are really hard to work with. No one's going to sign up for that. We have to go out and be proactive and sell Farragut. We need to put some energy to this. I think this is so important. If we let this sit and just wait for someone to come to us, they're not going to. There's opportunities all over the United States. We have to work on selling ourselves. So we've got some energy, we've got some interest. The community was not behind this several years ago. I remember reading a lot of negative when you go back through the Farragut press. They're all in. Most of the people that we're talking about want to see a town center. They want to see something happening. So we need to capitalize on that energy.
I'd like to comment on that. The Craig Allen property, there's a gentleman who's come up with a plan. He's excited about going forward with creating something in the town, mixed-use town center. He's looking for funding, and he thought he had some people, but they are tied up in other projects out of town, in other areas of the state. And it's just going to take time. There are people like him that are interested. I know at ICSC there's been conversations. I think staff has talked to people outside of the area. So I think we are actively looking for people to come forward and do something with the mixed-use town center for us. But so far nobody's stepped up. And it's going to take, again, a continued effort. It's going to take a while, but we're all for it. I'm all for mixed-use town center. I have been from the beginning. I wrote an article a year ago, told people, look for me on the plaza. And it's probably going to be 10 years, 15 years before they're going to find me there. But, somewhere down the road, we're going to have a mixed-use town center. But this is something we can do now. So, I mean the park.
Any more discussion about this? Do we have?
We have a motion and a second.
All right. Any more discussion then? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay. Down to town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the board allowing me the opportunity over the past few days to attend the International City Managers Association convention. And what I thought was interesting from your discussion that you just had is that there are cities all over the country that I talked to and listened to and sat through classes on that are tackling the exact same issues that you were just discussing. They want to try to get their downtown revitalized. They want to try to have placemaking. You know, what's a unique place? They're a suburban community that is really trying to make an identity for themselves, and they have all these different projects that they're trying to tackle and figure out what's best for their community. So I just want to tell you, you're not alone in all these discussions that you're having, and they're very important discussions for us as a community. But there's a lot of other cities out there, certainly, that are trying to come up with the same great ideas that we're trying to get here in our community as well. A couple of ideas, or a couple of events coming up for us. Tomorrow night is Freaky Friday Fright Night. Hopefully everybody can come out to Mayor Bob Leonard Park from 5 to 7 o'clock. If you want to get a parking spot, you may want to get there early because we've got a lot of construction going on right now at the park. So we've got a little bit of some parking space issues going on. But anyway, we're going to be out at the same spot we usually are, right there by the softball fields as you enter up and head toward the field 2 of the park. So again, we're looking forward to that. Should be a great night. Should have a huge attendance, probably similar to what we had last year. Also on November 8th, we have the graduation for our Intro to Farragut class. We've got one more class next week and then graduation then. So again, that'll be from 6 to 8 at Foxton. So hopefully we'll get all the invitations out to you, or you've seen those, and we can have everybody attend that. We had a great class. I know we've got at least one member here tonight trying to get their board meetings in, so we really appreciate them for doing that. And that is all I have to report tonight, unless the board has any questions of me.
I have the half marathon is this Saturday.
That's correct. Yeah, I forgot about that. Apologize.
There's a
Sorry,
party
Steve.
in the Kroger parking lot for anyone who's interested. And November, I believe it's November 11th, is the Farragut West Knox Chamber of Commerce 5K. And they need volunteers, so anybody interested can sign up at their website. And that's all I had.
What's the date on that one?
November 11th, I believe. Yeah, Saturday, November 11th. It's Veterans Day.
I do have a question of general interest, if I can just take a second. Gander Mountain, we've got a big empty store up next to the interstate. What have we done to be sure that the successor to Gander Mountain knows that we really want that store there?
I talked to the owner of the property back in May before we went to ICSC convention. At that time, my understanding from him is that they had a short-term lease renewed with Camping World for that property. Not sure exactly how long that is, or the terms and conditions, or anything like that. But obviously they have not moved in or done anything with the property at this time. So we haven't heard anything since. Probably be a good idea for us to give them a call just to find out what's going on, if they will be willing to tell us anything. But that's what my understanding is right now. They were looking to reuse that I think they're trying to figure out how to reuse that building.
What can we, or what are we doing as a town to make sure that Camping World knows that we really want them here? That store was a real asset to the community, and I think it was one of their better performing stores. And just let them know that we really miss them, and we want them back in here.
It was a great store for Gander Mountain whenever they were here, no doubt about it. I think if they hadn't gone under as a company, they certainly would have kept that store in place, even if they had to take out some other ones. Sure. Camping World obviously is a different concept altogether than Gander Mountain, and again, I think they're trying to figure out what that concept for that location is going to be. They've got a huge Camping World location down in Louisville right now. You probably see interstate signs pointing towards it whenever you're going down I-40. So I think the question that they're probably trying to wrestle with right now is, how do we utilize that building? What do we put in there? What's the best concept going forward?
Cannibalizing other stores in Louisville, right across the river here?
Right across the river, yes, sir. So again, I know that's probably a lot of the discussion, but I can certainly, again, contact the owner, see if there's any more updates that they may be able to give me on that.
Yeah, 'cause I know we all lobbied for Costco, and they knew there were citizen petitions and things like that, and anything like that could be helpful. Something that our Economic Development Committee probably needs to be looking at and working on too.
Good point.
Absolutely.
Be good agenda.
I've got a question. I was told that Dollar General is supposed to be opening like mid-November, possibly, sometime in the next 3 weeks.
The best looking Dollar General in the country.
Once they move
I think
out
it
of
looks
the,
great.
once they move out of the old Ingalls Center, has there been any conversation, anything, any information you could share with possibly what's going to happen?
With the old
Ingalls
Ingalls,
Center?
I think that's probably an internal Ingalls question. Obviously, they have not done a lot with the property over the last several years as people have left. But I think, hopefully, once Dollar General is out and there is an empty building then with nobody there, that they'd be willing to hopefully do something with it.
You would hope.
I would definitely hope.
A brand new 200 unit project right behind them, it looks like that would be a pretty good candidate for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right, they've got a lot of units going in there with the memory care facility and the assisted living facility, and then the single family residential units behind it. So they'll have a lot more people in that general vicinity to be able to utilize that area.
Rooftops, yeah.
Absolutely.
Good. I have nothing more.
And
No report.
a report from the town attorney.
My goodness.
In case, we are adjourned.
Right on the line.